Okay, this is a short video on a parking brake problem in a 2000 Pontiac Bonneville where my wife stepped on the parking brake pedal. It's one of these that you step on it to apply it and you step on it again to release it. And of course it didn't come up. It just kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter every time she stepped on it till pretty soon, everything was completely locked up. So I ended up having to loosen the parking brake adjustment cable, which is under the driver's seat area except underneath the car. You'll find a cable that runs from the parking brake area, exits the bottom of the car, and goes along the bottom of the car. So I had to jack the car up, loosen up the cable so far enough to release the brakes and take the tension off the cable. I wanted to get up into there to figure out what was going on, so I went over to the dealership and they gave me, at least they had no parts, of course, because it's a 2000. It's now 17 years later. So they gave me a little sheet on how to remove it. I'll flip through it here for you. Basically, you loosen that adjuster underneath the car. And then you unhook a wire up on the plate, unhook the brake cable out of the plate, which I'll show you in a minute, and then remove the whole assembly. That whole assembly looks like this right here once it comes out. Now, the fun part of this, which is the reason I went to the dealer, was I had trouble finding, while you're laying underneath the dashboard trying to see up in there, all the nuts. I found this nut here and one here. So there's one here and one here. And I was feeling all around up in here and I felt these little rivet things. Could not find the other nut. Well, conveniently these rivets, they decided to weld a bracket on the back. So here's this giant hole here. It's way bigger than it needs to be, but it goes over a stud, and a third nut is there. So in order to get this thing out, you have to get all three of those nuts off. So the two that you can find real easy, and then the hidden one back here. Now this hole right here is where your brake cable comes up into it, and then the inner cable actually hooks into this right here, and there's a clip that goes over that to hold it on. So the whole problem in this, the reason this happened, is there is a spring. I've already replaced it, and I'll tell you about it in a second here, up here, that controls this cog right here that can actually slide back and forth. And it has a groove in it that slides forward and back. And the movement is pretty much controlled by this spring. The spring tension has to be on it in order for that thing to work. So essentially what happened was, here's the original spring right here. It's very thin. It's like thin piano wire. And it's separated and broke right here. So it's basically a circle, one time around a circle. And this hooks on there, and the fins go off each side to clip in the holes. So I made one out of a paper clip, full-size paper clip to start with. Went around twice on it and just stuck out the ends like that. And I was just goofing around with it, and sure enough, the thing started working again, because I didn't even know what holes it was supposed to go in. There's a few other things on there you could hook this to. So all of a sudden it started working. I went, well, I could leave that in there, it'd probably be just fine, but I decided to go find a better piece of wire. Don't go to Home Depot, don't look in the picture department, the wire there is too soft. I ended up going to a bolt hardware store where they sell welding supplies, and the guy cut off a couple feet of a very thin welding wire. It's very stiff, it's hard to work with, which it doesn't look, that's why it doesn't look so pretty when I put it back in. My circles are perfect with the paper clip, but not so much with this welding wire, but it's very tough. So here's the welding wire here. I just basically went around about 2.5 times with it to create some torsion. It's called a torsion spring if you look it up online. And then I just basically hooked it through this hole and through the backing plate. here's the backing plate. Just put a 90 degree around the back there so it stays put. And the only other thing in here is this electrical switch, which lights up your light on the dash that tells you the parking brake's applied. It shuts off when this is all the way open like that. So it pushes on that tab there and shuts that off. The only thing I could find that you can get parts for this thing is if there's a few of these around the country in dealer stock that they never sold. They can't return them to GM. So if you search the part number, I wrote it on here. It's 25658072. You can still, if you want to pay $100 or so to get one of these, all you end up buying is the same thing. You just get the one with the spring on it. So anyway, I solved this for basically $2 and a little bit of my time. Now, what I was told this fits is a 2000 Bonneville, a 2000 LeSabre, a 97 to 2000 Buick Park Avenue, and a 2001 Olds Aurora. That's basically this part is where it was used. So if you don't have one of those cars, this part number is not good for you. However, most of these braking mechanisms where you step on them with your foot in that era in the early 2000s and late 90s is probably based on this same concept. So if your pedal doesn't come back up, essentially if you can loosen that load on the cable, then you can just reach up there and flip this switch right here, this cog, and you'll be able to at least let the pedal back up and work with it. But it's just that spring there that needs to be replaced. Unfortunately, I'm sure you can hunt and find a spring, but it's very hard to find little springs like this online unless you want to buy 1,000 of them from some bulk spring supplier. So I found it kind of hard to find on Google. So I just made my own, and I've ratcheted this thing probably 100 times or more, and it works great. So essentially you apply the brake, it's locked, and then you're going to unlock the brake, you push down on it again, and you see that cog will pop up. There you go. So it closes, ratchets, and you want to let go, you push down again. There it goes. I do it right in the normal motion, it works great. So set it, push it again, it goes away. So that's all that spring is doing, is putting a little tension on that little lever to let it go one way or the other, whichever way it wants to go. And that's it. So I'm going to put this thing back in and it should be all working good. Once again, this is on my 2000 Pontiac Bonneville, but same part is in your 97 to 2000 Park Avenue, a 2001 Olds Aurora, I believe a 2000 Buick LeSabre. Or you can go search down one of these things and buy one at a junkyard. But anyway, just remember this is a hidden nut back here. There's nuts on there, this hole, and right here. There'll be a wire to hook back up onto here with a spade terminal, and then you hook your cable back into here through this hole here. Should be good to go. A lot of time spent, but finally figured it out. I thought I'd share it with you. Have a good one. Bye bye.